This is video 4 of 6 covering the primary study guide for exam 3. In this video, we start at the top of page 9. We'll cover through page 13, covering the chapter 20 application / practice problem content. Okay, so first we're going to do a direct labor calculation. Note that budgets or expectations, estimations of direct labor focus on only the current month that you are being asked to report. So if I were asked to report, say, February here, I would need February's total units that I intend to produce in that month, which was 2,600 units. I use 0.6 direct labor hours to produce each unit, so I need in total 1,560 direct labor hours. They cost me $12 a piece. $18,720 in direct labor. So for February, I would have had 1,560 direct labor hours for a total cost of $18,720. If I had been asked for January, January reports that I'm making 2,680 units. They take 0.6 direct labor hours each, so I will need to use 1,608 direct labor hours at a cost of $12 a piece. 19,296. March, 2,740 units times 0.6 direct labor hours each. 1,644 direct labor hours at $12 a piece. $19,728. Calculating budgeted total overhead. Red Ink budgets July production of 7,900 units. Got variable overhead of $1.20 per unit produced. So my variable overhead, I'm looking at July, so it's $1.20 per unit produced. I'm going to be producing 7,900 units. Variable overhead of $9,480. And then I've got budgeted fixed overhead of $19,000. That includes $3,000 of equipment depreciation. I don't care. Like, I'm including that $3,000, the other $16,000, all of it is included. I just care about the total. $9,480 plus the $19,000 in fixed overhead. $28,480. So unless I'm asked to do the cash budget, I do care about depreciation expense. I would include it. The schedule of cash collections. So 70% of sales are cash sales, where I get that cash immediately or in the month of the sale. So 70% of the current month for any month. And I get 30%. 30% of any sale is a credit sale going to be collected in the month after the sale. So I get 30% of any month's sales in the next month. So for April, I would get 70% of April's sales and 30% of the month that had come before it, March. So I'm told that April had total sales of 525,000. So we get 75% of that in April. The other 30% of that in the next month. Then I would get, so I've got 535,000 in May. I would get 75% or 70% of that in May. The other 30% in June. Then in June, 560,000. I would get 70% of that in June, the other 30% in July. So now I'm ready to calculate these. I've got both of these, so I can go ahead and add those up. For June, now I need my credit sales for April. It would be 30% of the month before, so 30% of the 500,000 for March. I have 17,500. Alternatively, I could have done that like so. Just my total amount of sales. 70% of that here. The rest of it here. 535 times 0.7. Add those two up. Five hundred times 0.3. And those are the same amounts, just different approach. Now I'm asked to do an alternative, assuming that they first began business in April, so that there were 0 sales in March, And basically they had no account receivable, so um, my credit sales from credit sales would have been 0. I would have still had the same 367,500 though. For total cash collected. Okay, now my cash budget. First, I need to get my preliminary budget, or my preliminary balance, which is just beginning cash plus receipts minus payments or expenses. So I've got a beginning balance of 20,000 plus cash receipts, cash payments minus. I do not care about this depreciation expense. It's not a cash item, so I ignore it. Cash expenses, that is basically the same thing as a cash payment. Note it says cash. Okay, so I had 15K as my preliminary balance. I've got a 20K minimum. So I had less than the minimum. I do not have enough. I'm going to get $5,000 short. That means I will need to borrow an additional 5,000 to reach the minimum. I don't have any extra left over to make a payment, so that is 0. My beginning loan balance had been 50,000. I just borrowed 5,000 more, so that increased my balance. I made no payments, so minus 0. $55,000 ending loan balance. My ending cash balance, I initially had 15,000 in preliminary balance, plus a $5,000 additional loan, minus a $0 payment. You'll note that that equals my minimum cash balance, which is exactly what I would expect, given that my loan balance is currently greater than 0. This alternative still ignoring depreciation. And a $25,000 preliminary balance. Which is over the minimum. So I have extra that I can use to make a payment. I have 25 minus 20. I've got 5,000 extra. I owe 50,000. So I don't need an additional loan. I'm going to make a $5,000 payment with the entire extra amount that I've got. My ending loan balance, I began by owing 50,000. I borrowed no more. I made a payment of 5. That leaves me owing 45,000. I started out with a preliminary balance of 25,000. No additional loan. Minus a $5,000 payment. Given that that is greater than 0, I would expect this to come out to the minimum balance, and so it does. Good sign. Here, cash balance plus cash receipts minus payments minus payments. Once again, depreciation not valid or not relevant, minus cash expenses, which are basically like payments. $20,000 preliminary balance. So that equals the minimum. So there's no extra to make a payment. And I'm not falling short of the minimum. So I do not have a need for an additional loan because I have enough. I don't have any extra to make a payment. So there's been no change in my loan balance. My cash balance began at 20,000, increased by nothing. I made no payments to decrease it. Additionally, this is still well over 0, so I would expect my ending cash balance would be 20,000. Okay, that is the end of video 4. In video 5, we'll pick back up on page 14 with chapter 21, conceptual content.